You are, yes, 422. We're starting? I'm waiting for someone technical to smile at me. Is that a smile behind your mask? Excellent. Fine. Let's begin. Chag Sameach, everybody. Thank you so much for being here in person. Thank you so much for being here on Zoom. And it is wonderful to be able to celebrate Simchat Torah once again together. We're going to begin our service on page 422. Please rise as Susan lights the candles.
In the spirit of our ancient tradition, which unites and sanctifies the house of Israel in all lands and ages, we welcome the festival of Shmini Atzeret Simchat Torah by kindling these lights. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Yom Tov.
Let's say the Shehechianu together as we reach this time once again. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehechianu v'kimanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. Please be seated. As we come to the end of the Sukkot season, we recall yet again how fleeting is our life. But we remember too that we are not made only of matter. We live in dimensions of spirit, in a world of sacred time. And now we look back upon the great creation of our people, a literature inspired by God we call Torah. But on this day, we complete and begin again our cycle of reading from it and our exploration of its many meanings. Today, we discover anew that its ways are ways of pleasantness and all its paths are peace. Today, we rejoice in our religious heritage and pray that we may always be loyal to its teachings. Lo yamush sefer haTorah hazeh mipicha, v'hagita bo yomam v'layla, l'ma'an tishmor la'asot kechol hakatuv bo, ki az tatzliach et drachecha v'az taschil. And let's read together those words from Psalm 19 that we so often include in our Torah service. God's teaching is perfect. God's word is unfailing. God's precepts are right. God's commandments are clear. God's doctrine is pure. God's guidance is true. And reminding ourselves of the dictum of the wonderfully named Rabbi Ben Bagbag. Ben Bagbag omer hafach ba v'hafach ba. Turn it and turn it, for all is in it. Look into it, grow grey and old over it, and never turn away from it. You cannot find a better way of life than this. V'yedaber Moshe et mo'adei Adonai el b'nei Yisrael. And Moses proclaimed the divinely ordained festivals to the people of Israel. We'll continue on page 425 with another responsive reading. God be gracious to us and bless us, and let your face shine upon us, that your way may be known upon earth. Your salvation among all nations. Let the peoples praise you, O God. Let all the peoples praise you. Let the nations shout for joy, for you rule the world with justice. Let all the peoples praise you, O God. Let all the peoples praise you. The earth has brought forth its harvest. God has blessed us. And we come on page 427 to Baruch Hu. Please rise if you are able. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. Praise the one to whom our praise is due. We praise the eternal one to whom our praise is due forever. Please be seated. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim v'chochma potech she'arim uvidvuna meshane itim umachalif et hazmanim umesader et hakochavim b'mishmerotehem barakia kirdsono borei yom v'layla golel or mipnei choshech v'choshech mipnei or uma'avir yom umevi layla umavdil ben yom uvein layla Adonai Tzavaot Shemo, Baruch Atah Adonai, Hama'ariv Aravim. So last week we did one tune for Ahavat Olam. This week we will do the other one out of even-handedness. Ahavat Olam, Beit Yisrael, Amecha Ahavta, Amcha Ahavta, Torah u'mitzvot, Chukim u'mishpatim, Otanu limadata, Al kein Adonai Eloheinu b'shofteinu, Ukumenu nachiach b'chukecha, v'nismach b'divrei Toratecha, uv'mitzvotecha le'olam va'ed, ki hem chayenu, be'orech yameinu, uvahem nege yomam v'layla, nege yomam v'layla, v'ahavatcha al tasur, mimenu le'olamim, Baruch atah Adonai, ohev amo Yisrael, ohev amo Yisrael. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch ברוך שם כבוד מלכותו לעולם ועד. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. Just before we continue, and while we've talked about the words of Torah being always in our hearts, I'm now going to share with you the single most useful thing I have learnt in 4 years at Leobet College. So if any of you want to experience the proper experience without spending 4 years of your life and all of your overdraft, this is your opportunity. And it is a song to remember the names of all the Torah portions in the correct order. This is kind of the Jewish version of the Element song by Tom Lehrer. If you're familiar with that, it is the most useful thing that I've ever come across. If you want to follow along with the names of the portions, they are in the contents page of your Siddur, starting at the bottom of page VII. No one's ever told you to turn to the VII pages, have they? And it goes like this. Bereshit Noach lech lecha vayerach ha'esara todot vayetze vayishlach vayeshev miketz vayegash vayechi ele sidrot Bereshit. Shemot va'era bo b'shalach yitro mishpatim teruma tetzaveh kitisa vayakel b'pudeh ele sidrot sefer shmot. Vayikra tzav shemini tazria matzora acharei mot kadoshim emo behar bechukotai ele sidrot vayikra. B'midbar naso b'halotcha shlach laha Korah chukat balak pinchas matot maaseh ele sidrot b'midbar. Devarim va'et chanan ekev re'eh shoftim kitetze kitavo nitzavim va'ele chazinu v'zot habracha ele sidrot devarim. And we'll be scrolling through all of those later in the service. Let's continue at the foot of 429. Yes, saying the actual whole Torah sadly takes rather longer, but that's tomorrow morning's service. All this we hold to be true and sure. You alone, Eternal One, are our God, and we are Israel, your people. You have freed us from oppressors and delivered us from tyrants. You led us out of Egypt forever to serve you in freedom. When we witnessed your power, we praised your name and gave thanks. Willingly, we accepted your rule. Then, full of joy, we sang together. Mi chamocha bailim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh, nora tehilot osef pelem, Adonai yimlo leolam va'ed. V'ne'emar ki fada Adonai et Yaakov, ugalo miyad chazak mimenu, Baruch ata Adonai, Ga'al Yisrael. Ashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, v'hamidenu malkenu l'chaim, ufros aleinu sukkot shlemecha, v'taknenu be'etza tova milfanecha, v'hoshienu l'ma'an shemecha, v'hagen ba'adenu, v'haser me'aleinu oyev deber v'chereb v'ra'ab v'yagon, v'harachek mimenu avon v'fesha, uv'tzel knafecha tastirenu, ki el shomrenu umatzilenu ata, ki el melech chanun v'rachum ata, ushmor tzeitenu uvo'enu l'chayim u'l'shalom me'ata be'ad olam, Baruch Ata Adonai, Haporei Sukat Shalom Aleinu, Bial Kol Yoshvei Tevel. Please rise for the Amidah. Adonai sepatai tiftach ufiya kitehilatecha. Adonai sepatai tiftach ufiya kitehilatecha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei Avotenu ve'imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Ha'gibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'koneh HaKol, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך חוזר ומשיח ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, וחיי מתים אתה רב להושיע. משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מזריח השמש ומוריד הטל, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי מתים ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו, לשני עפר, מי כמוך בגבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה. ונאמן אתה להחיות מתים, ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיי המתים. קדוש אתה ונורא שמך, ואין לנו אלוה מבלעדיך. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh. Please feel free to be seated. You have given us a special task among the peoples. In your love and favor, you have sanctified us by your commandments, drawn us near to your service, and charged us to make known your great and holy name. In your love, eternal one, our God, you have given us feasts of joy and seasons of gladness. Among them, this festival of Shmini Atzeret Simchat Torah, season of our gladness, to unite us in worship and in remembrance of the Exodus from Egypt. Eloheinu ve'Elohei Avotenu, Ya'aleh v'yavo v'yizacher zichronenu, v'zichron kol amcha Beit Yisrael lefanecha, v'tova v'livracha l'chayim u'l'shalom, ביום חג השמיני, חג העצרת הזה, זוכרנו אדוני אלוהינו בו לטובה, ופוקדנו בו לברכה, והושיענו בו לחיים. And let's read together. Grant, eternal God, that our observance of the festivals may bring us blessing, happiness, and joy. Sanctify us by your commandments, and make us loyal to your teaching. Satisfy us with your goodness, gladden us with your salvation, and purify our hearts to serve you in truth. And grant, eternal God, that the happiness of the festivals may be with us always. We praise you, O God. You hallow Israel and the festivals. Ratzei Adonai Eloheinu, Be'amecha Yisrael, Utefilatan me'ahava tekabel, Utehila ratzon, Tamid avodat Yisrael, Amecha, Yisrael Amecha, Baruch atah Adonai, שאותך לבדך ביראה נעבוד. We give thanks that you, Eternal One, are our God, as you were the rock of our ancestors. You are the rock of our life, the power that shields us in every age. We thank and praise you for our lives which are in your hand, for our souls which are in your keeping, for the signs of your presence we encounter every day, and for your wondrous gifts at all times, morning, noon, and night. We praise you, O God, source of goodness, to whom all thanks are due. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim le'olam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim le'olam. Ki atahu melech adon lechol hashalom. Ki atahu melech adon lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim le'olam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim le'olam. V'tov be'enecha levarech et amcha Yisrael ve'et kol ha'amim b'chol eit u'b'chol sha'a b'shlomecha. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha tasim le'olam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha tasim le'olam. Baruch atah Adonai, oseh hashalom. Let's take a moment for silent prayer and reflection. Oseh shalom bimromah, uyaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol bnei Adam. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. V'himeru, Amen. You need feet to stand up straight with. You need feet to kick your friends. You need feet to keep your socks on and stop your legs from fraying at the ends, as Bernard Bresslaw put it. But why do we dance with our feet and with the scrolls on Simchat Torah? I think there's probably two answers to that, as there are to almost everything. It's tradition and it's fun. But fun for who? We kind of assume, somewhat naively maybe, that it's fun for us. It's a bit of frivolity in the synagogue. It breaks up the service a little bit. You know, chance to stretch your legs, chance to sing, chance in different years to have a bit of a drink maybe. But what about the Torah Scroll itself, though? Does it get a say? During the long months of lockdown, I didn't get to go near a Torah Scroll, and I really missed it. And in all honesty, what I wanted to do was give a Torah Scroll a good cuddle. I really like the feeling of holding it across my chest, feeling the weight, feeling the physicality, all of its component parts, the tinkling of the bells, the embroidered cover. it's a really sensory experience, and it's the weight of generations gone by. And in the case of Czech scrolls, of generations exterminated. And this is where the Lubavitcher Rebbe comes in. And he's not someone that I would often quote, but on this particular occasion, he said something which I think is rather beautiful. And he taught that when we dance with the scroll at Simchat Torah, we make ourselves the scroll's feet. And there are two aspects of that for him. Firstly, it means that we're subjecting ourselves to the Torah. It becomes our head. Just as the feet can't go anywhere without the head telling them, so too we're recognizing the centrality of Torah and of Judaism in our lives. But this, he said, has a second aspect as well. Feet take the head somewhere that the head can't go on its own. And the Torah has fun too. The Torah, an ancient document, an ancient scroll that survived the generations, that's seen them come and go, relishes the opportunity to be taken down off the bimah, to be given a bit of a dance, to come out of its cupboard and to come into the limelight. And this, says the Lubavitcher Rebbe, is why the commandment of Simchat Torah is phrased in the plural. You plural must rejoice. The Jews rejoice in Torah, he said, and the Torah rejoices in the Jews. And so on that note, we are going to come to our Torah service for Simchat Torah, which will begin on page 504. We will not be providing food and drink for obvious reasons, but I would please invite everyone who can remotely bear to have a turn dancing with a scroll, take a flag, and let us rejoice in the Torah and let the Torah rejoice in us this year being back in the building. Happy are those whose way is sure, who walk in the light of Torah. Happy those who follow your teachings, O God, who seek you with a whole heart. Your word is a lamp for our feet, a light for our path. Your Torah is our joy. Happy the people on whom such blessing falls. Happy the people whose God is the Eternal One. Please rise as we open the ark. Ata hareta leda'at ki Adonai hu ha'elohim ein od milvado. Le'oseh nifla'ot gdolot levado ki le'olam kastor. Ein kamocha ba'elohim Adonai ve'ein kama'asecha. Yehi chavod Adonai le'olam. Yismach Adonai b'ma'asav. Yehi Shem Adonai mevorach me'ata ve'ad olam. Yehi Adonai Eloheinu imanu ka'asher haya im avotenu al ya'azvenu va'al yotshenu v'yimru hoshi'enu Elohei yish'enu lehodot l'shem kodshecha lehishtabech b'tilatecha. Adonai melech, Adonai malach, Adonai yimlo leolam va'ed, Adonai oz le'amo yiten, Adonai yevarech et amo v'shalom. I'd like to grab a scroll. Who's our scroll bearers?
Are we going to dance now?
We are. We're just going to hold on to it for a moment and do the Shema line, and then. Yeah, go. Shall I grab one as well? If you want to get that one. Karen.
It's all right, you're not the first.
There we go. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo. How happy, how fortunate, how privileged you are, O Israel, commissioned to serve God, inheritors of Torah. we're now going to have our procession. We're going to do the first paragraph printed on the page, and then because the rest of it is not particularly fun dancing music, we are going to do Hinei Matov, followed by Hava Nagila, followed by David Melech Israel, and we'll make sure everyone who wants a chance to dance will get that. So yes, we'll go in this direction. Ana Adonai Ashiana, Ana Adonai Atzlichana, Ana Adonai Aneni Beyom Karenu, Ana Adonai Aneni Beyom Karenu, Ana Adonai Hoshiana. Hine Matov. Hine Matov Umanayim Sheretavim Tayah. Yes, now could our Chatanim indicate which scrolls they would like to keep and which ones they would like returned? Right, you've got a special one.
I think it's this one.
These two, right. Other scrolls may now go back in the ark.
Yeah.
Which one? Deceptive, I'm sure.
Number 6.
Please, Pete. This has been the problem with lockdown. That's my only exercise of the year, and it's been 2 years since I did it. So we are going to continue on page 508, just as the scroll is being undressed. Sisu v'simchu v'simchat Torah, utanu chavod la Torah. Ki tov sachara mikol sechora mipaz u'mipninim yakara. Let us rejoice in this Torah of ours, for it gives us strength and light. It is a tree of life for all. For you, O God, are our fountain of life. And we're just preparing the Deuteronomy Scroll. This is going to be the last 12 verses of Deuteronomy of the final chapter, if anyone is going to be following in a chumash, which indeed I am. Then if we're ready to bring it forward, or is that the right, I don't know which is which, do I? Which one's coming first? I want Deuteronomy first. Which side is that going to be? I think that's going to be you. Yeah, it's difficult doing it backwards. Do please come forward then. I'll let you open it. All yours in there. And I'm going to call up now Ya'amod, Bichael ben Leva, Yosef Lekriyat HaTorah, Ulehavi HaChatan Torah.
Going to do, people are going to say something about Torahs before we read the Torah.
I thought it was after.
Oh, is it after? Which way is out? I don't mind. Do it afterwards, Jeff.
Okay, I thought that was coming afterwards, I'm afraid, but
It's all right.
that's right.
Okay, well, I'm coming up armed with lots of books. That's to disguise the fact that I don't know what I'm doing. So that I'm okay with the tech, and I'm okay reading verses with vowels in, but I'm not so hot on reading the scroll without. As Gabriel has said, the portion I'm reading, which is the very last part of Deuteronomy, it's chapter 34. I can't tell you what it is in the Chumash you've got, because I've been using the Sonsino Chumash, which I treasure because it's the one thing I've got left that was my grandfather's. So it's been important to me to use that. And I'm going to read it in English first, so that you can at least understand part of it, and I can understand part of it, and it can demonstrate that I can read in English, even if I can't read very well in Hebrew. So Moses went up from the steppes of Moab to Mount Nebo, to the summit of Pisgah, opposite Jericho. And the Lord showed him the whole land, Gilead as far as Dan, all Naphtali, the land of Ephraim and Manasseh, the whole land of Judah as far as the western sea, the Negev and the plain, the valley of Jericho, the city of palm trees, as far as Zoar. And the Lord said to him, "This is the land of which I swore to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I will assign it to your offspring. I have let you see it with your own eyes, but you shall not cross there." So Moses, the servant of the Lord, died there in the land of Moab at the command of the Lord. He buried him in the valley of the land of Moab near Beth Peor, and no one knows his burial place to this day. Moses was 120 years old when he died. His eyes were undimmed and his vigor unabated. And the Israelites bewailed Moses in the steppes of Moab for 30 days. The period of wailing and mourning for Moses came to an end. Now Joshua, son of Nun, was filled with the spirit of wisdom, because Moses had laid his hands upon him, and the Israelites heeded him, doing as the Lord had commanded Moses. Water down underneath it, if that's okay. V'yel Moshe Maravat Moav El HaNavo Navo Rosh Hapiska Asher El Pnei Yerochov V'yarov Chav Adonai et Kol Haaretz et Hagaladam Ad Dan V'et Kol Naphtali V'et Eretz Ephraim Umanasseh V'et Kol Eretz Yehuda Ad Chaya Hoaziran V'et Hanagav V'et Hakachor Bakat Yerochu Ir Hatamarim Ad Se'er Vayome Adonai Elav Zot Ha'eretz Asher Nishba'ati La'avaram Liyitzchak U'Liyakov La'Avraham Liyitzchak U'Liyakov Lemor Lezoro et Naneh Haratav Tam Be'anav U'Shemo Lo Ta'avor V'Yomer Sim Moshe Avdo Adonai Be'eretz Moav Al Pai Adonai V'Kava et Vagi Be'eretz Moav Mol Beit Peor Ula Yidasha et Kavrata Ad Hayam Hazer Umoshe Ben Me'ah Usharim Shenei Beimota Lo Mechata Einav Ulo Nes Lichot V'Yavecho B'nei Yisrael et Moshe Baravat Moav Shilshim Yom V'Yatemor Yemei B'cha Evli Moshe V'Yehoshua ben Nun Melo Rochi Hachama Ki Sama Moshe et Yero Eliv V'Yish Ma'av Elav B'nei Yisrael V'Yasa Kesha Tzu Adonai et Moshe Ula Kam Neva'a Avdo B'Yisrael Kamoshe Asher Yadu Adonai Penaim El Benim Lechol Hatati V'Cham Fatim Asher Shlochov Adonai La'asot Be'eretz Mitzrayim Lifra'at Ulachal Avdo Ulachal Aratso Ulachal Chad Hazakah Belachal Chamorah Hagadol Asher Osei Moshe Leanei Kol Yisrael Hazak Benit Hazek. Actually, I never read the blessing. Nobody said it to me beforehand. But anyway, I'll do the blessings now the wrong way around, but I apologize for that. Baruch hu et Adonai hamvarach. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bacha banu mikol ha'avim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai notein haTorah.
Amen.
I don't do the one afterwards because David does that.
Thank you so much. I'm going to move scroll number 1 back to Marit, if that's okay. And I will call up both scroll number 2 and reader number 2, Chatan Bereshit. Ya'amod, David ben Shimon, L'Kriyat HaTorah, U'L'Hayah. Chatan Bereshit. go. I would say, do you need help finding your place? But I suspect not in this particular circumstance.
So I thought I wouldn't read in English. If you want to know what it means, you have to come back tomorrow morning, because the service is quite long tonight. So. Oh, mind the candles. Bereshit bara Elohim et ha-paperclip et Bereshit bara Elohim et ha-shamayim ve'et ha'aretz v'ha'aretz hayta tohu vavohu v'choshech al panei tahom v'ruach Elohim rachefet al panei hamayim v'yomeh Elohim yehi or v'yehi or v'ya Elohim et ha'or kitov v'yavdel Elohim ben ha'or uven ha'choshech v'yikra Elohim la'or yom u'lechoshech kara laila v'yehi erev v'yehi boker yom echad v'yomeh Elohim yehi rakia b'toch hamayim v'hi mavdil ben mayim lamayim v'ya'as Elohim et harakia v'yavdil ben hamayim asher mitachat larakia uven hamayim asher ma'al larakia v'yehi ken v'yikra Elohim larakia shamayim v'yehi erev v'yehi boker yom sheni v'yomeh Elohim yikavu hamayim mitachat hashamayim el makom echad v'tera'eh hayabasha v'yehi ken v'yikra Elohim layabasha eretz u'lemikveh hamayim kara yamim v'ya Elohim kitov v'yomeh Elohim tadshe haaretz deshe esev mozria zera al peri esev peri lemino asher zerobo al haaretz v'yehi ken v'tetzor haaretz deshe esev mazria zera leminehu v'etz ese ose peri asher zerobo leminehu v'ya Elohim kitov v'yehi erev v'yehi boker yom shlishi v'yomeh Elohim yehi me'orot barakia hashamayim lehavdil ben hayom uven halayla v'hayu la'atot u'meloadim u'lshamim v'shanim v'hayu le'me'orot barakia hashamayim leha'ir al haaretz v'yehi ken v'ya'as Elohim et shnei ha'me'orot ha'gedolim et ha'me'or ha'gadol le'memshelet hayom ve'et ha'me'or ha'katan le'memshelet halayla ve'et ha'kochavim v'yiten otam Elohim barakia hashamayim leha'ir al haaretz u'limshol b'yom u'v'layla u'lehavdil ben ha'or u'ven ha'choshech v'ya Elohim kitov v'yehi erev v'yehi boker yom revi'i v'yomeh Elohim yishrutzu hamayim sheretz nefesh chaya v'of ye'ofef al haaretz al penei rakia hashamayim v'yivra Elohim et hatananim hagdolim ve'et kol nefesh hachaya haromeset asher shirtzu hamayim lemineihem ve'et kol of ganaf leminehu v'ya Elohim kitov v'yivarech otam Elohim lemor peri urvu umilu et hamayim b'mayim v'ha'of yerev ba'eretz v'yehi erev v'yehi boker yom chamishi v'yomeh Elohim totzei ha'aretz nefesh chaya lemina bahema v'remes v'chayato eretz lemina v'yehi ken v'ya'as Elohim et chayat haaretz lemina ve'et ואת הבהמה למינה, ואת כל רמס האדמה למיניהו, והיה אלוהים כי טוב. ויאמר אלוהים נעשה אדם בצלמו כדמותנו, וירדו בדגת הים ובעוף השמיים ובבהמה ובכל הארץ, ובכל הרומס על הארץ. ויברא אלוהים את האדם בצלמו, בצלם אלוהים ברא אותו, זכר ונקבה ברא אותם. ויברך אותם אלוהים, ויאמר להם אלוהים, פרי ורבו, ומילאו את הארץ וכבשוה, ורדו בדגת הים, ובעוף השמיים, ובכל חיה הרומסת על הארץ. ויאמר אלוהים, הנה נתתי לכם את כל עשב זורע זרע, אשר על פני כל הארץ, ואת כל העץ אשר בו פרי עץ זורע זרע, לכם יהיה לאכלה. ולכל חיית הארץ, ולכל עוף השמיים, ולכל רומס על הארץ. לכל רומס על הארץ, אשר בו נפש חיה, על כל ירב עשב לאכלה ויהי כן. והיה אלוהים את כל אשר עשה, והנה טוב מאוד. ויהי ערב ויהי בוקר יום השישי. ויחולו השמיים והארץ וכל צבאם, ויחל אלוהים ביום השביעי מלאכתו אשר עשה, וישבות ביום השביעי מכל מלאכתו אשר עשה. ויברך אלוהים את יום השביעי, ויקדש אותו, כי בו שבת מכל מלאכתו אשר ברא אלוהים לעשות. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת, וחיי עולם נטע בתוכנו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Amen. Please rise, and our scrolls will rise also. Baruch shenatan Torah le'amo Yisrael b'kedushato. And turning to page 510, we will open the ark to replace them.
They're not dressed yet.
They're not dressed yet. Let's sit down and dress the scrolls. Good point. Do please be seated. So I always was brought up with the tradition that the citation for the two chatanim should come after the Torah reading, because if you do it before, then you're about to have death. And if we do it after, we've just heard Tov Ma'od, how good people are, which seems very appropriate in the circumstances. So I'm delighted to invite the citation now to be given.
It's a huge honor to be asked to give an accolade for Mike Harris. Unashamedly, or actually ashamedly, I'll make some comments which Mike might have heard before. So apologies to him for that. So when I have a dilemma or a difficult decision to make, I sometimes think of somebody I admire and ask, what would they do or decide in this situation? There are one or two people I have as models whom I use as a sort of reference. I don't know whether you do that, but Mike Harris is not one of those people. I would never say to myself, what would Mike Harris do in this situation? And that's because I couldn't possibly match what he does. I don't know how a single person can manage to achieve what he does every day. I sometimes think there must be two Mike Harrises. He is one of the most eminent forensic psychiatrists in the world. He was director of Nottingham Healthcare Forensic Services, which includes high, medium, and low secure services. He's also acting chief executive of the Whole Trust, which is the biggest mental health provider in Europe. I work in mental health as well, sitting on tribunals, and I know he's held in the greatest respect. He's not just a ganzer macher, though. He gets things done, big and small. We were on a short trip with Rabbi Tanya to Belarusia, and he asked me what I thought about the new tribunal suite at Rampton Hospital. I said it was fine, but there were no facilities for making tea or coffee. He phoned up from Minsk and got them to install a coffee machine. I got more kudos from telling that story to my tribunal colleagues and dropping Mike's name than any mental health expertise I might have. It's impossible to do justice to all that Mike has done for us, for Nottingham Liberal Synagogue. He's held most of the important positions in the shul, being secretary, chairman on more than one occasion, as well as president. He's also raised large sums of money, notably the Rabbinic Fund, without which we would not have been able to employ Rabbi Tanya and her predecessors. He continues to sit on the Rights and Practices Committee and has done so for many years. He's chair of J-Care and its parent body Improving Lives. He's also chair of the Lucy Faithful Foundation, which is a UK-wide charity which aims to prevent and tackle child sex abuse. We couldn't have managed to do all that we have done throughout the pandemic without Mike's amazing wizardry with the Zoom technology. And if I ask you to say what you see on the floor of the bimmer, well, there's not much. The answer would be nothing. And that's because a few weeks ago, Mike somehow managed to hide away all the cabling underneath the bimmer. We used to tease Mike and call him the late Mike Harris, because he was often racing from one commitment to another and would understandably arrive late. Actually, he doesn't deserve that reputation anymore, as he was always here on time to let people into our hybrid services. But I would now like to bestow on him a new moniker, and that is the ubiquitous Mike Harris. The ubiquitous Mike Harris. You'll find him under the bimmer, on top of the bimmer, behind the computer screen. And best of all for me is that I often see him in person, in shul, visiting us at our house, walking the dog in Woodthorpe Park. Somehow, Mike also finds time to pursue many leisure pursuits. He enjoys traveling. Pat and he have a holiday home in the south of France and Dorset, and they raced home from there last night. And they've been on cruises to the Arctic Circle and the Galapagos Islands. And I was just saying to Mike before the service, you know, he's been to every continent in the world apart from the Antarctic. So I told you he gets everywhere. Yeah. He's also a do-it-yourself expert, as displayed in the virtual media he set up for us. I would like to finish with what he and Pat have meant to Leslie and me personally. I mentioned Pat as well because you can't think of one without the other. In 1989, just before we arrived in Nottingham, Leslie was looking for a job as a forensic psychologist. It just happened that Mike was setting up a new psychology post in the Community Mental Health Forensic Service. Leslie was on the phone discussing the job with him when she passed the phone to me to discuss joining our shul. So our first contact with Mike resulted in a wonderful employment opportunity for Leslie, as well as introducing us to our shul. Pat and Mike have also been close to us in our darkest time. When our beloved son Ben died 3 years ago on a Friday evening, it was Mike who was the first to come and just be with us on a Saturday morning. And Pat too has always been a source of love and support. And that is why I could not wish for a bigger honor than to pay tribute to our Chasam Torah, Mike Harris.
thought David was going to do the whole of Genesis. I apologize that I should be using a tablet in order to give this citation, but I was on my computer at home and I pressed the print button and it said I'm off the internet. Normally it said click here. It didn't say click here. And if something doesn't say click here, I'm in trouble right from the start. And so I brought my phone. I photographed it, brought the phone. Anyway, I'm grateful to a lot of people for enabling me to give this address from Susan's tablet. Apart from the fact that I was bringing it up and there was only one and it wasn't made of stone, I felt a bit like Moses. But also, we owe this, the fact that I can give this to technology and to a huge number. How many people does it take to, Mike Harris with part of the cord that charged my phone, Lauren with the other part of the cord, Wendy that showed me how to deal with it all. Anyway, here we are. David Levy has had, David Lee even. I'm entitled to one mistake, aren't I? I better make sure it's not two. David Lee has had a checkered career, or as treasurer, one might say, a checked career, if such things as checks were still in common use, including an incident with certain comparisons with James Bond. I've lost it, Susan, I've lost it. Broadway, I'm told that there are 2 new releases hitting Broadway on demand this week. Okay. Don't go away, Susan, don't go away. Okay, thanks.
How many people do it?
Yeah, thank you, thanks. That makes half a dozen at least. David Lee and Gabby joined NPJC as it was then in 1997 because it was from us that they had the best welcome of several shuls that they had tried, and because it felt right, and how right Gabby and David have been for NLS. In 1998, they were living in Grantham. David talks of a visit I made to talk about being more active in the shul. David is incorrect. I wasn't interested in David then. I had a more important fish to fry, Gabby. I was looking to Gabby to become the editor of the shul's then magazine, Ruach. I succeeded, and she made a great job of it with her skills and her important experience. So much so that in 2012, when she retired from that position, she too was honored as Kalab Reshit. By that time, with David as honorary secretary of the shul, Gabby had conquered the world. She wasn't the only woman from Grantham to conquer the world. The office of shul treasurer has, in my view, attracted the most distinguished and this isn't the James Bond bit yet. Oh, Broadway again. Come on along and listen to the lullaby of Broadway. Thank you. Where are we? Yes, the office of treasurer has really attracted people of the highest caliber in the congregation. Started with Derek Silk, who set the precedent, followed by Peter Strauss, Peter Gordon, Ernest Kochman, and David as treasurer enhanced that line considerably, serving for 8 years, from 2013 until his retirement earlier this year. During that time, he increased the shul's reserves by 30%, from tuppence to from £236,000 to £306,000. But his activities extended far more widely than the treasurer. He ran a prayer book Hebrew class. He was secretary before he took over the treasury from his predecessor. And you can have it back. Thank you very much. Could you print it for me overnight, please? So I got it tomorrow morning. So from here on, it's a bit extempore. But just as David had taken an interest in North London Progressive Synagogue, where he grew up and where his mother was president for 2 terms, David, not content with being a teacher in Cheder, had taken a teacher's training course at the Leo Beck College, so that he extended his net widely. And in fact, I wonder whether to tell you the James Bond bit now or to save it for tomorrow morning. All right. This is a trailer, you understand. There'll be more detail tomorrow morning. He did a Russian course in, he was a senior executive in Pedigree Pet Foods. He was the Russian operative, if that's the right word. And he did a course in Russian in Moscow. And during that time, he met a refusnik who was a professor at Moscow University, who wanted to escape to the West, or in fact, ultimately to Israel. Well, David and this professor, Schwartzman was his name, close, sort of had to be very careful where they went, and he went in, they walked around Red Square. KGB, as far as David was concerned, that meant K9, great, KGB, K9, great, I've forgotten what, anyway, it was all about K9s, nothing to do with the Secret Service. You'll have the full, as I tell you, this is just a trailer for tomorrow. You'll have it all for tomorrow. And as a result of that connection, when he was followed by a member of the K9 food, by the KGB, he was dragged out of the queue at the airport on his way home. But you'll have to wait until tomorrow to find out what happened to him. However, However, the fact is that David has been a magnificent servant to the congregation. And let's not forget Gabby as well. Not only in the treasuryship, which he has nurtured and done exceptionally well, so that his predecessors in that would undoubtedly be very proud of him. He's extended his influence on council and generally among the congregation. And we should be grateful that we have such people, not only such wonderful people of integrity, people of experience as members of the congregation, but they are prepared, and Mike Harris says an example, that they are prepared to be involved and give their time to and in running the congregation. David Shkaya, thank you.
I'm really pleased you saved me from having to make the tablet joke as well, because that was about to come out. Let's rise and open.
It's nowhere, if I may say so.
Let's rise and open the ark on page 511. Before we replace the scrolls, I'll offer a Misha Berach to Chatanim. Misha Berach Avotenu Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Imotenu, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Beleah, Hu Yivarech et Chatanim Ha'eleh. May the one who blessed our ancestors bless these Chatanim who have given such service to this community, and let us say, Amen. Behold, a good doctrine has been given you, do not forsake it. Etz Chaim hi lemachazikim ba v'tomcheha me'usha derachecha darchenoam v'chon tibotecha shalom Ashivei Adonai elecha v'nashuva Chadesh yameinu k'kedem Chadesh yameinu k'kedem. Let's remain standing for our concluding prayers, which will begin on page 520. Alenu l'shabeach la'adon hakol, latet gdula liotze bereshit, asher samchokenu le'ached et shemo, v'gor aleinu lahamlich malchuto, ve'anachnu korim, u'mishtachavim u'modim, lifnei melech malchei hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Shehu Notei Shamayim ve'osed Haaretz, U'moshav Yikaru b'shamayim nima'al, Ushchinatu zo, B'gofei me'aromim, Hu Eloheinu Echad, Eloheinu Efesulato, Kakatuv b'Torato, V'yadata hayom v'hashevota elevavecha, Ki Adonai hu ha'Elohim, b'shamayim mima'al, V'al ha'aretz מתחת אין עוד. על כן נחווה לך, אדוני אלוהינו, לראות מהרה בתפארת עוזך, להעביר גילולים מן הארץ והאלילים קרות יכרתון, לתקן עולם במלכות שדי וכל בני בשר יקראו בשמך, להפנות אליך כל ראשי הארץ. יכירו וידעו כל יושבי תבל, כי לך תכרע כל ברך, תשבע כל לשון, לפניך אדוני אלוהינו, יכרעו ויפולו ולכבוד שמך יקר ייתנו, ויקבלו כולם את עול מלכותך, ותמלוך עליהם מהרה לעולם ועד. כי המלכות שלך היא, ולעולמי עד תמלוך בכבוד, ככתוב בתורתך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד. The growing good of the world is partly dependent on unhistoric acts, and that things are not so ill with you and me as they might have been is half owing to the number who lived faithfully a hidden life and rest in unvisited tombs. Even when they are gone, the departed are with us. They inspire us to live as in their higher moments they themselves sought to live. We remember them now. They remain in our hearts. They are a continual blessing. And we turn at the page to say together the words of Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divrach hiruteh v'yamlich malchuteh, v'chayechon v'yomechon, v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, v'gala v'zman kariv v'imru, Amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah mevarach le'alam ulalmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitada v'yitale v'yitalal shemei d'kudsha b'rechu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, diamiram be'alma v'imru, Amen. Yehei shalama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Israel, v'imru, Amen. Oseh shalom b'imramav, hu ya'aseh shalom, Aleinu ve'al kol Israel, ve'al kol b'nei Adam, v'imru, Amen. May the Most High source of perfect peace grant peace to us, to all Israel, to all humanity, and let us say, Amen. Please be seated. And we'll conclude our service with Adon Olam. Adon Olam Hashem Allah, b'terem kol yetzir nivra, le'et nasa v'chefto kol, asai melech shamo nikra, ve'acharei kitlot hakol, levado yimloch nora, v'hu haya v'hu hoveh, v'hu yiyeh b'tifara, v'hu echad ve'en sheni, laham shelo lahachbira, b'li reshit b'li tachlit, v'lo ha'os v'ha'misra, v'hu eli v'chai go'ali, v'tzochev li b'et tzara, v'hu nisi umanos li, manat kosi b'yom ekra, v'ya'ado afkid ruchi, ve'et ishan ve'a'ira, ve'im ruchi yaviati, Adonai li v'lo ira. Please rise for a final blessing. Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu, barchenu b'bracha hamushuleshet hakudova b'Torah, Yivarachenu Adonai v'yishmerenu. May God bless us and keep us. Ya'er Adonai panav eleinu v'chunenu. May God look kindly upon us and be gracious to us. Yisa Adonai panav eleinu ve'asem lanu shalom. May God reach out to us in tenderness and give us peace. And let us say, Amen. Chag Sameach.
Shkoyach, Gabriel.
As part of your university.